Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Warzone in Depth. In today's episode, I want to take a closer look at the Task Force and Spetsnaz barrels. In Black Ops Cold War multiplayer, the last barrel attachment you unlock for every weapon will either be Task Force or Spetsnaz, and they're typically going to add damage to the weapon on a per-shot basis. This isn't true in Warzone. Thank goodness we have enough problems with stopping power as is, but these final set of barrels do add range, bullet velocity, and now some strafe speed after the most recent update. However, if you look at the in-game stats, unlike a lot of the barrels, they do come with significant downsides such as horizontal and vertical recoil penalties. So if you paid attention to the in-game stats, it would mean that your gun will strafe a little faster and shoot a little bit further, but it'll kick more up and side to side, and the side to side can be really killer. Now, personally, I'm a bit of a coward and I don't have the best aim, so I tend to avoid things that increase my recoil, like kryptonite. I just try to run away from anything that makes my gun kick more, and I pretty much never use it. So I haven't put a lot of work into Task Force and Spetsnaz barrels in Warzone. However, a lot of people are using these barrels on weapons that I pick up. They're in bundles. I see streamers, I see pro gamers, tournament players, and I've also noticed that my peers in competition, Ace, True Game Data, and JGod absolutely love these barrels, but I still hate them and try to avoid them because of the recoil. And I said, you know what, how about we just put this to a test? I wanted to test them all out to see how much the recoil actually changes when you put the final barrel on your weapons as of April 28th, 2021. I know that Raven is always tinkering with attachments. They're always doing stealth patches and stealth nerfs. So I just kind of wanted to see how they're performing today in case something changed. And we're going to be taking a look at all the rifles that have these attachments. We're not going to focus too much on submachine guns because in the case of SMGs, you're supposed to be using them up close at point blank kind of ranges to where subtle recoil differences probably aren't going to matter very much, but they'll make a big difference on rifles at long ranges. First up today is the XM4 compared to the XM4 with the Task Force barrel, and you will immediately notice that the XM4 with the Task Force barrel kicks more. I tried really hard to get all the scale of the images here the same, and do pay attention to the little lock in the bottom right hand corner of both of those images. That's kind of what I use to set up my aim and try to keep it scaled so you guys can see the difference. You'll notice that the XM4 with the Task Force barrel not only has bigger spacing between its initial shots, but its vertical recoil cap is significantly higher, and it's kicking more to the side, going all the way over to the other side of the testing. Matter of fact, it kicks so much, I tested these back to back with the AK, it actually jumped over into the AK testing, which you'll see very, very soon. So not a good start for these barrels. Taking a look at the AK-47 from Cold War and the AK-47 with the Spetsnaz barrel, you can still see the XM4 kicking over there, but you will not notice a very big difference. I might say the regular AK-47 spacing is like a little bit closer, maybe, but I would be hard pressed to say that you're going to notice this in a gunfight. So as far as I'm concerned, I would say that it actually doesn't make any difference on the AK-47, which is a very surprising result for me. Moving along, we can take a look at the QBZ, and I do not know why the QBZ does this, but the first two shots are like left-right, side-by-side on both of them. It almost wants to make like a really long, skinny penis here, and you'll see a pretty similar story in that the QBZ might be very slightly tighter on the non-Task Force side, but the Task Force barrel isn't significantly worse. It might kick up just like a little bit more, like less than 5% more. It might have a little bit more side-to-side wobble, but in an actual gunfight, when I'm running around shooting at people, I would almost certainly never notice the difference between these two. The Groza, I don't know, I just kind of brain derped on this one. The CMV mil-spec barrel is not a Spetsnaz or a Task Force. It doesn't have the recoil changing attachments, and as you can see, the recoil pattern is basically the same here. Might look a little bit worse on the right-hand side. I think I made my dots a little bit smaller, and of course there's random variants, but I just kind of got into like a testing mood, and I was just doing it without even really thinking about it. But I did put a lot of thought into the FFAR. The FFAR 83 is a very popular weapon, likely to catch a nerf sometime soon, so I wanted to see it with and without the Task Force barrel. The FFAR without the Task Force barrel is very accurate. The FFAR with the Spetsnaz barrel, actually, I've been saying Task Force, in the final barrel, let's just say that. They're very similar. The FFAR with the Spetsnaz barrel does have a little bit more horizontal, wobble to it, and its vertical limit is like a little bit higher, but I would call this a less than 5% recoil increase, which given the other bonuses of the barrel, like your strafe speed and range and bullet velocity, I would say is negligible, but it is changing the recoil. And then finally, I wanted to take a look at the FFAR and then the FFAR with the Task Force barrel. and I would say that they're pretty similar. I maybe a little bit worse with the Task Force barrel. If you take a look at the Task Force side, it's got wider spacing between the shots, even though the overall pattern is kind of the same. However, I kept getting this like little anomalous jump to the side with the basic FFAR, that little blue dot just hanging out there on its own. I don't know why it did that. It did that twice, actually. So there's something goofy going on with the regular recoil pattern on the FFAR, but I'll say in terms of vertical recoil, at least, it might be a little bit worse with the Task Force barrel. So after taking a look at all of that, my conclusion is that Task Force barrels don't hurt your recoil very much, with two notable exceptions. The Task Force barrel negatively impacts the XM4 and the FFAR. It probably impacts the XM4 a lot more than it does the FFAR, but we are getting more vertical kick out of the FFAR. And the Spetsnaz barrel does have a minor negative effect on the Fara 83, but it's not too bad and not something that I think a lot of you are going to notice. The benefits that these barrels provide, they're a little bit different for each weapon, but generally speaking, it's about plus 20 to 30% bullet velocity and plus 10 to 15% range. Most of the barrels in the game do not provide both of those, so it's nice to have both of those provided with a single attachment. Plus, they'll give you a strafe speed bonus that's very similar to the ultralight barrels. It's like just barely slower than the ultralight barrels, but you're pretty much getting that same bonus with the range bonus and everything else. So you get a little bit of mobility out of these, and I think that makes them very good attachments. Both the Task Force and the Spetsnaz barrel are usually going to be good attachments on your weapons, and if they have downsides, they're going to be minimal downsides, with the exception of the XM4. The XM4 obviously performed far worse with the Task Force barrel for whatever reason, but the more common meta build for the XM4 now, mostly thanks to True Game Data, who he's a big fan of this one, is to do the XM4 SMG replacement loadout. And that'll you take advantage of the Task Force barrel so that you can strafe around people really fast and help your bullet velocity and stuff. It will make your recoil worse, but given the fact that you're primarily using this as a close range kind of rifle, I don't think it's going to be worse enough to not want to use over anything else. I think that running this with the XM4 SMG style loadout is totally good, but if I were going to use the XM4 as a battle rifle or a long range rifle, absolutely not. In the case of the Fara 83, even with the minor penalty, I'm probably going to be putting the Spetsnaz barrel on it. I'm definitely going to be changing up my AK-47 build to include the Spetsnaz barrel because I've kind of proved myself wrong there, and it is objectively better with the Spetsnaz barrel. Now, the other weapons in that list I don't use very much anymore. The Groza got preemptively nerfed. The FFAR just isn't my taste anymore. And the QBZ is kind of miserable. I actually did like a whole video on the QBZ. I might put that gameplay. You know what? Let's do a slight in-depth bonus here at the end. I'll show you some of the QBZ gameplay. We'll swap over to that. So I tried to do the ultra-fast strafing QBZ build. I was actually working on this independently, and then I saw that JGod already did it, and I wanted to kick myself in the head because he beat me to it. But the QBZ has really fast ADS, really fast strafing, really fast movement speed, and all this stuff, so I thought I'll try to build it like an SMG and play very aggressive, but the time to kill was just so miserably slow that it couldn't kill anything up close, and I was just getting outgunned by SMGs. So what I decided to do is try to turn it into like a long-range tactical battle rifle, and I did use the Task Force barrel on this one to keep the fast strafing speed and increase the range and stuff, and it was a very accurate weapon, and it was really kind of weird to strafe people at long ranges left and right. It kind of screwed up their gunfights a little bit, but it still has the same problem of the time to kill being incredibly slow and not competitive enough to be worth using. I think I did this all night last night trying to kind of figure out how to make the QBZ work, and I'm gonna do this QBZ in-depth episode and show people this thing, and at the end of the day it just killed too slow and it couldn't really compete with the other weapons. I'm rambling a little bit, but instead of doing a whole separate video, I just wanted to put that here in at the end. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.